We appreciate all of the guests who have appeared on our show and sincerely thank them for providing you, our audience, with useful information. However, the advice our guests provide is theirs, and we encourage you to seek out a professional if you have specific questions about any topic we cover on the Crushing Debt podcast. On this week's episode of the Crushing Debt podcast, Spectacular Failures.
Welcome to the Crushing Debt Podcast with your host, Florida attorney Sean Yesner, where our goal is to help you get rid of the financial bullies in your life.
So welcome back to this week's episode of the Crushing Debt Podcast. My name is Sean Yesner, owner and founder of Yesner Law, and I am really thrilled to bring you this week's guest. Now, before I get to him real quick, I do want to give some love to our sponsors. One of them is Mark Purvis. He is actually the editor for the Crushing Debt podcast. He's also a videographer, which is basically what he does. But Mark wants you to go to a website called legacyspotlight.com. And what legacyspotlight.com does is it's for working professionals who want their retired parents to record their life stories. It's for families to enjoy and record and document meaningful conversations from the people that lived through those experiences. I mean, what would it be like to be able to pick grandpa's brain again? What would it be like to talk about stories with grandma and grandpa again? Well, legacyspotlight.com, you can record those stories now. Mark will edit them up, and then you've got something preserved forever for you and your family. So again, thank you, Mark. Thank you for editing the show. Everybody visit legacyspotlight.com. But I am really excited to bring you my guest, who has been on my radar for quite a while, and I'm embarrassed it's taken me so long to get him on the show. He's somebody that's been in real estate investing, probably forgotten more about real estate investing than I will ever know. He's been through many seminars, and we'll describe for you what those are. He is a podcast host himself, the Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing podcast. He's an author that's written at least 2 books, Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing, Lifetime Cash Flow Through Multifamily Properties. He is a philanthropist with the Tiny Hand Foundation. He's lost money in the crash from 2008. He is recovered from that market crash. And so we're going to talk to him about seminars and spectacular failures and real estate investing. And I am very honored this week to bring you my guest, Rod Khleif. Welcome, Rod.
Oh, thanks, Sean. Let's have some fun today.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
and by the way, I want to give a quick mention of your sponsor, that video editing. I did something like that with my parents before my dad died, and my mom is about to go to hospice as well. We did like an event for them, a party, a surprise thing, and we recorded it, and it was just beautiful. So I'd encourage you guys to do that. It is really something that you're going to treasure, and your grandchildren will treasure. But yeah, let's do it, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the biggest question, and it's something that I'm still struggling with today and trying to figure out today, I don't think we're going to have the same bubble that we had in 2008. I don't think we're going to experience that same kind of crash in 2008, but I think something's coming. So if people come to you with all your experience in real estate, is a crash coming? What's your answer?
Do you mind if I give people a little background on how I may have some credibility to answer that question?
Sure.
It'll take me about 5 minutes. Let me just tell my story real quick.
Absolutely.
So I immigrated this country when I was 6 years old. I was born in the Netherlands, Holland, wooden shoes, windmills. And I immigrated with my brother, Albert, my mother, Zwancha. We ended up in Denver, Colorado. And when we first immigrated, we really struggled. Okay. So, I remember eating clothes. Eating food from the expired food store. We drank powdered milk with our cereal in the morning. I wore clothes in the Goodwill and the Salvation Army all the way through junior high school till I lied about my age when I was 14 and got a job at Burger King so I could buy my own clothes and ultimately buy a car. And you may have listeners that had it harder than I did or even have it harder now. But luckily, I knew I wanted more. And my mom had an incredible work ethic. So she babysat kids so we'd have enough money to eat and so on and so forth. And she became a bit of an entrepreneur with her babysitting money. In fact, she invested in the stock market successfully. And she also invested in real estate. And the first real estate she bought was the house directly across the street from us when I was about 14 for about $30,000. This is 1974. When I was 17, she told me she made $20,000 in her sleep. And I'm like, what? You didn't do anything. You made $20,000. Screw college. I'm getting into real estate, Mom. So I got my real estate broker's license right when I turned 18, which you could do back then with education. You didn't need experience. They got smart. Now you need some experience. But I was a broker. I could have my own office. Well, my first year in real estate, I made about $8,000. My second year, maybe $10,000. But my third year, I made over $100,000, which back in 1980 was pretty decent change. So what happened between year 2 and year 3? Well, what happened was I met a guy that taught me about the importance of mindset and psychology, and how truly 80 to 90% of your success in anything is just that, mindset and psychology. So fast forward to today, I've owned a couple thousand houses. I've rented long-term. I've owned thousands and still own thousands of apartment units. In 2006, my net worth went up $17 million while I slept. And you might be like, wow. And I was like, wow. And I got a head so big, I could barely fit it through a door. I thought I was a freaking real estate god. And when that happens, God of the universe will give you a nice little smack down. Well, that was 2008, as you were alluding to. I lost $50 million in 2008. And so, one of the things I'm known for in my podcast, which I appreciate you mentioning, is the mindset it took that $50 million to lose in the first place, but then the mindset it took to recover from losing $50 million. So back to your question. I believe the market is frothing, and I'm still buying because there are still deals out there. But what's so unusual is that there's such a huge pent up demand for housing right now. I mean, the numbers are crazy, how there's a shortage of housing units. That said, I mean, listen, we won't go down that political rabbit hole, but they're doing some stupid stuff. And I just, it just feels like 2006 to me. So, if I had a crystal ball, I'd already be on the back of my 300-foot yacht. But I don't. But I will tell you, it doesn't feel good right now. Now, is that something to be scared of? No, because with crisis comes opportunity. I mean, if I hadn't been hiding under a rock in 2009, I probably would be on the back of my yacht right now. So I'm getting in a lot of cash. I'm in a lot of cash right now. I have access to a lot of cash through investors, because cash is king when that happens. And real estate goes through cycles, as you know, Sean. I mean, I've been through several, and 08-09 was the biggest one, of course, but I went through the S&L crisis back, and I had a crash in the 80s and late 70s, 80s. And there was incredible opportunity then. And so, again, not something to fear, just something to be aware of and prepare for. Like right now, do not be super aggressive in your numbers when you're analyzing a deal. Be conservative. Have operating reserves put aside. Don't think you're going to fix up a property from the cash flow. No, raise that money in advance so you have it. And that's a super newbie mistake. But the point is, I do feel like something's coming. I don't think it's going to happen before the election. Just that's the way things work. But after next year, all bets are off.
Yeah. So one of the things you said was the demand for housing, which I agree. There's a huge demand, but I assume you have properties both in Florida and outside. You live in Florida, right?
Correct. Sarasota. Yeah.
Okay. Which is just down the road from me in Tampa. But do you have properties outside of Florida as well?
I have assets. I have 3 or 4 assets in Dallas. These are large apartment complexes. I have one in Houston, one in San Antonio. Just sold the one in Lexington, under contract on the one in Shreveport, Louisiana. We've got one in one in Dayton, Ohio, a rich suburb of Dayton, Ohio. Got one in Cincinnati, 2 in Cincinnati, Indianapolis, got one, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, all have assets in them that I own. And of course, here in Florida. Wow.
So when you say that there's a huge demand for housing, I know there is here in Florida because there's a lot of people moving to Florida. Do you see that same demand outside of Florida?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Rents have gone up like crazy. The markets that with the exception of Louisiana, that Shreveport one. We won't talk about that. And even Lexington was okay. It was just a little too volatile for us. But oh my God, we've seen 20% rent increases in 12 months. I mean, it's staggering. Forget the Tampa MSA, MSA means Metropolitan Statistical Area, which includes Sarasota. I'm buying a property here in Sarasota, a 6-plex. The rents are $900. The rent should be $1,500. Okay. I've got a friend of my wife, actually, that's renting a 2-bedroom, and they raised her rent $1,200 from $1,800 to $3,000 here in Sarasota. That's how nuts it is. Yes, not just Florida. I mean, we've seen rent increases in pretty much every market that we're in. Now, some are not as significant as others. That's why we love this business. If you don't know, commercial real estate is valued on a multiple of the net income. It's not like residential where you have to use comparable sales. And residential also includes a duplex, a triplex, or a fourplex. So anything over 5 units or more is commercial, and it's valued on a multiple of the net income. It's called the net operating income. And any increase to that income is an exponential increase to the value. I'll give you an example. We've got a 296 unit asset in San Antonio, and my property manager a month ago visited all the units, looking, inspecting the fire extinguishers and the fire solution, making sure the batteries and smoke detector and stuff. And she discovered 64 pets that we didn't know about, people weren't paying for. And so those people are now paying $20 a month. To give you an idea of what that means, that is a $400,000 instant increase in value. Okay, just by finding some pets. So again, that's why we love this business.
Yeah, exactly. I want to give you a little bit of an example because I got a question here eventually. I had a friend of mine actually call me yesterday, and I kind of slapped him around a little bit that he didn't call me sooner, but he called me because a single family home here in the Tampa Bay area got into trouble, got into foreclosure, ended up getting scared about the whole situation and kind of withdrawing and moved out. And so 2 questions here. So the first thing is the property actually went to sale yesterday, and he's getting blown up because it sold for $120,000 more than what he owed. So my first question is, what are you seeing happening with prices? And I think that's kind of driving sort of, I agree that we've got this 2006, 2007 feel because I think prices are going up really quickly. So number one, what do you see in terms of prices? But number two, he was so scared, nervous, embarrassed about I'm in foreclosure. I'm like, dude, why didn't you call me, call realtor and sell it, do something? So you've alluded to it before, but somebody who's scared, somebody who's in fear, somebody who says this is 2008 happening all over again, what would you say to them?
Well, first of all, you unpacked a lot right there, and I'm cringing listening to that story because he absolutely could have sold the property, saved his credit, made money. Now he's getting blown up because there are people that want him to collect on that extra $100,000, help him collect on it. So these are people that do that, and they'll take 30% for the privilege of doing that. But just so you know, that's an area of this business I know a lot about. After I lost everything in 2008 and 2009, I actually built a litigation support company, and I actually built law firms in 5 states. And so what we would do, and Florida was one of them, these are states where you could actually stop the foreclosure through litigation. And so we would stop the foreclosure, and then we had I had 60 employees help modify their loans and help. We've saved thousands of families' homes. I hated the business because everybody's unhappy when they're losing their home, and it was negative. And I sold it a few years ago. But again, that's something I know a lot about. And frankly, there was so much fraud going on with the banks and everything else. We did really good work. We won't go down that rabbit hole, but yeah, the prices have gone crazy. And so, in my business, the multifamily business, there's a lot of opportunity because rents have gone up so much. And so, but as far as single family home prices, it's gonna level off. I mean, the Fed is doing, renting. I mean, interest rate increases, and at some point, it's going to impact pricing. It hasn't yet, but it absolutely will. And by the way, let me mention, and you may not have any interest, those of you listening or watching, but I am actually having a boot camp January 29th, 30th, and 31st in Denver. If you want to come, it's 3 days. It's not a sales pitch. It's 3 days of training, and you can come for $197. So it's kind of a no-brainer. I mean, it's more about the travel and the time, but it's not a sales pitch. Every aspect of this multifamily business, it's going to be awesome because it's in Denver, my hometown, and I'm expecting about 1,000 people. It should be probably my largest event ever. All my events sell out, but if you want to come, 2023,
January 2023.
I'm sorry, July 29th, 30th, and 31st.
July.
In Denver. Yeah. And if you're interested, text my name, Rod, to 72345. Again, that's Rod to 72345, and we'll send you the link. It's also multifamilybootcamp.com. But if you go and the price has gone up, because it'll ultimately be about $697. If the price has gone up and you just let me know you were on Sean's podcast just DM me on any social channel. I'm on every single one. Like I told you, Sean, I'm even on freaking TikTok now, but any social channel, just DM me and I'll get you that $197 price. I'll give you a code so you can still get it if it's gone up. But it's kind of a no-brainer if you're interested in this business, because we go through everything from building a team to finding deals to evaluating deals, due diligence, financing them, syndicating them, managing them, raising all the money you need for them, on and on and on. And if you know me, well, you don't know me, I'm assuming, but I spend a lot of time on mindset. So you actually take action with what you learn, okay? Because, again, if it was just the knowledge, there'd be a bunch of wealthy librarians and college professors out there. It's the do and it's the keep doing. So, there's a reason I've been teaching a little over 4 years, and my students now own, I think, well in excess of 60,000 doors that we know of. And I'm super proud of that. Wow. And it's because they actually take action. So anyway, I wanted to mention that if you have an interest. If you don't, then no problem. But if you're interested in real estate, for God's sakes, come to Denver. You'll be very glad you did. If you come to my event for 3 days and you don't freaking love it, let me know. I'll give you money back. And I don't mean like it. I mean love it. So that's how confident I am. It's never happened, but there's a first time for everything. So happy to give you and I've had thousands and thousands of people attend. But so anyway, that's in the multifamily thing. I think prices are going to continue for a little bit longer, but then it has to level off. But that's the thing. I say that, but then I'm sitting here saying maybe not, because the demand is so high. It's really kind of crazy right now, and it could continue to be crazy, and of course here in Florida, it's crazy squared. It's like that in definitely the southern half of the United States. Texas is killing it, Arizona killing it, parts of California killing it, Georgia, looking at my map over here, Georgia, the Carolinas killing it. When people ask me, where should I buy? I always tell them, there's 80 million baby boomers getting old and getting cold. So what do you think?
Wow. So what would you say to someone that comes to you and says, I don't want to invest right now, single family, multifamily, whatever. I don't want to invest right now because I'm afraid that we're about to hit another crash?
I would tell you that there are deals out there, but they're harder to find. You got to kiss a lot of frogs right now. But here's what I'll tell you. It's a fantastic time to learn, because you need to build those relationships now. You need to understand how to underwrite deals now. You need to know how to evaluate deals, build a team, get all that put together. So when a crash happens, you can capitalize on it. Because if you try to learn when the crash happens, it's going to be too late. So, it's a fantastic time to learn the business. And if you happen across a deal while you're learning and evaluating deals and learning that, then fantastic. I mean, I've got students literally putting stuff under contract every week that are good deals. They're looking at a lot of deals to find them. And so that will level out. It will even out. But again, I think it's a fantastic time to learn the business, whether you come to my Denver boot camp or not. If you're interested in this, for God's sakes, don't dabble. Okay. Learn it. Don't dabble in this.
Right. Okay. Got it. And we've kind of touched on it before, but what do you sort of see going forward here? What kind of market cycles are you thinking we might be dealing with moving forward?
Well, God, I wish I could answer that question, brother. I mean, again, if I could, I'd be a billionaire already. And there's just so many things that impact this. I thought COVID was going to be the catalyst. I mean, I did a YouTube video, The Coming Crash. Of course, I got a lot of hate, and I was dead wrong, because real estate, what asset class can you buy that the government will help you make sure you don't lose it, like giving the rent to the renters, trillions of dollars. That multifamily is the only one, or real estate in general. And, shopping centers didn't get that. Office buildings didn't get that. Industrial didn't get that. And so I really thought COVID was going to be the catalyst, and it wasn't. There's so much crazy stuff going on right now, massive government spending. Inflation is insane. I think any one of those things could make things go south, but the demand is still there. So it's just, it's half of this, half of that. I just don't know. And
the interesting thing to me, so you mentioned shopping centers and whatnot. Mm-hmm. One of the interesting things to me, there's 4 shopping centers here in the Tampa Bay area that are all Westfield shopping centers. Mm-hmm. And I think 3 of the 4 are in foreclosure. And the thing that keeps occurring to me is, why? I mean, so let's say the bank.
Well, because those retailers got killed in COVID. Now, see, retail got killed by COVID. Service industry killed. Hotels killed. Office buildings killed, because nobody was going in, and people were negating rent, and tons of businesses went out of business.
And I was down. What's the bank going to do if the bank acquires these shopping malls? What the heck's the bank going to do with it?
They'll sell them. They can't hold on to them, and somebody will buy them and repurpose them or whatever. I mean, they'll, that the shopping centers are typically on some pretty decent land, and there's a lot of redevelopment opportunity, and they'll get them for cents on the dollar, and the banks will take a loss and move on. It's the same thing happened in 08 and 9. Wow. My portfolio here in 08 and 9 crashed over 70%. Okay. That's how much it dropped. I had 800 houses all along the Gulf Coast here, and I had multiple apartment complexes, and I crashed and burned because of the houses. The houses are what pulled me down. And I was only at a 30% loan to value. It wasn't over leveraged at all. I mean, it was really under leveraged, and I still crashed and burned. It was the houses, like I said. And if I hadn't cross collateralized packages of houses with the multifamily, I'd still have the multifamily. But in my infinite wisdom, I thought I'd save a 0.5% interest, 50 basis points, and refinance with some local banks. And so I lost it all. But we go through life, we have setbacks, and if you're listening, I'm sure you've had setbacks. And, if you're an entrepreneur, you only die if you stop swimming like a shark, right? And so, failures are nothing but wake-up calls. There's I call them seminars, because again, they're only a failure if you don't get back up or you don't get the lesson. I got to meet the billionaire owner of Spanx, the women's undergarments, Sarah Blakely. They hold everything together for women, and she started with $5,000, and I think she just sold it for several billion. She's a beautiful human being, but I met her at a mastermind that I belonged to a while back, and she told me that her dad used to ask her and her brother once a week, "What have you failed at this week?" And I thought, what an incredible freaking question to ask your kids so they don't fear failure. I want to tell you guys, if you're listening, you're afraid of failure, fear regret much more than failure. There was this nurse in Australia, a hospice nurse. So her name was Bronnie Ware. And she was taking care of patients when they were about to die. And Sean, she asked him a question. And the question was, do you have any regrets? And you know what the number one regret was? And she wrote a book about it. It's called The 5 Regrets of Dying. You know what the number one regret was? It was not living the life I could have lived, living someone else's life, not doing what I knew I'm capable of. I can't think of anything worse than that. So again, stop fearing failure. There's no failure unless you don't get back up. I did some reflection. It's probably been about 6 months ago, but I counted how many businesses I've started. I've started 27 businesses. Several have been worth, tens of millions of dollars, but most have been spectacular flaming seminars. Okay. We fail our way to success. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I mean, I don't know a better way to sort of get to the end of the episode unless there's something I forgot to ask you or something else you wanted to mention.
Well, listen, let me just say this, guys. We all have failures. If you come to one of my boot camps, I do virtual ones on occasion as well. But if you come to one of my boot camps, the first hour and a half is spent on goal setting. Why? Because how the hell do you get anything if you don't know what it is? You got to know what you want. You got to have clarity, because that's how you create what Napoleon Hill in his book Think and Grow Rich calls a burning desire. You got to want it. You've got to want it. So you push through fear. So you push through limiting beliefs, or maybe you're comfortable. And the comfort zone's a warm place, and we all know nothing freaking grows there, right? So that's how you do it. And so, like I say, I spend a lot of time on mindset at my boot camps, talk about peer group and focus and courage and fear and all of that, so that you take action with what you learn. But if you're not interested in multifamily and you just want to get juiced, listen to my podcast. I was just telling Sean before we started, we're about to hit 13 million downloads. I'm super proud of that. And the reason is I do a clip every week called Own Your Power. And it really is just about that. It's about owning your power. It's 5 minutes. So if you want to get juiced it's got music, and I promise you, I'll juice you once a week. If you give me 5 minutes, it'll really motivate you. So again, my podcasts are called Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing. I'm really proud of the work I do there, and I love it. And when you love what you do, you never work another day in your life, right? Work is play. So make sure you seek that out too, my friends. Find something you love. And if it's real estate and you don't love it, you can learn to love it. You can associate pleasure with it, like maybe equate it to hunting for buried treasure. But if you can't learn to love it, for God's sakes, go do something else. Life's too freaking short.
Yeah, no, I get it. I appreciate it. Thank you. So real quick, before we wrap up, I want to do 2 things real quick. One is to mention, I mentioned Mark and our legacyspotlight.com, but I want to talk about our other sponsor real quick. His name is Sam Cohen. Those of you that have been longtime listeners, you know who Sam is. Runs an insurance agency called Attorneys First Insurance. He does errors and omissions or malpractice insurance for attorneys and title companies. So regardless of where you are in the country, if you are an attorney or you own a title company and you want a competitive apples to apples quote on your E&O insurance, your malpractice coverage, it's sam@attorneysfirst.com, or just go to his website, attorneysfirst.com. So those are our 2 sponsors now for the show. I do want to thank Rod again for being a guest on this week's show, talking about being juiced up. I'm doing this interview in the middle of the day, and I'm totally juiced up for the rest of my day today. But again, if you want to get in touch with him, you text the word Rod to 72345. You can also find him on social media. Search for him on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. He's all over social media.
Good God, that's a lot.
Yeah, you can find him all over social media. Thank you again, Rod. I really appreciate you being a guest this week.
It's a pleasure to meet you, brother. And I look forward to seeing you at our upcoming event, Podfest, that we're going to go to. Love it.
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to see, that's another thing I forgot to mention. You want to meet Rod at Podfest, go to podfestexpo.com. Podfest has given me, as a speaker there, 5 free passes to Podfest. So what better opportunity to meet and interact with Rod and me? Email me, Sean@yesnerlaw.com, and I'll tell you how to get one of those free passes to Podfest. Now, you got to get there and you got to book the hotel, but we'll get you into Podfest for free if you're interested. It's podfestexpo.com, or again, email me. I've got a handful of free passes I can give you. And I think this episode really dovetails into the message of the show, which is that we hope at the end of the month you have more money, rather than at the end of the money you have more month. Thanks again, Rod, for being a guest this week, and we will talk to you all in next week's episode of the Crushing Debt Podcast.
If you have questions that you think would make a great topic for a future episode, please email Sean or connect with us on social media. Sean Yesner and Yesner Law, PL, are Florida licensed attorneys. The information contained in this week's episode is not a substitute for legal advice. Your situation may differ, especially if you are located somewhere other than the state of Florida. If you have questions, please contact our office or contact a local attorney. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Crushing Debt Podcast.